It's just a race. Is that what's dictating your life? And that's where we need balance. We need so much more in our life besides just running. I didn't have that.
This is Running for Real, the podcast for runners who know that for every runner's high, there are just as many lows. All those just missed PRs, easy runs that feel hard, injury blues, and more. Each week, we'll talk to running, health, and wellness experts about their highs, lows, and best advice to build our confidence. Running for Real is about being honest, being brave, and most of all, not feeling alone. And now here's our host, whose favorite thing to do at home is watch home videos of her childhood, Muir.
Hello, my friends, and welcome to the Running for Real podcast, episode 36. Now, last week we had a very special episode with Sally Bergeson. She kind of talked about the journey she's been in to develop and grow Oiselle, and she was just very real and honest with us about what she's been through, about some of the battles she has to overcome, about how a certain brand kind of is the major player and what she's been trying to do to kind of help that and kind of allow other brands to come through. She talked about Cara Goucher and Lauren Fleshman and the journey to get there with them. And it was just a really powerful episode. So hopefully you'll enjoy that one. Today we have an Olympian who I said last week was honest. This Olympian is more honest than anyone I've ever known with her past. She came out and publicly shared some things she'd done in her world, and she brought some attention to some mental health issues that, when combined with that drive we have to be a competitive athlete, can lead to some really dangerous situations, and in her case it did. Now, you may have heard of the story of Suzy Hamilton when it broke a few years ago, but Suzy doesn't really do many interviews anymore, so you're lucky to hear her share her story today and what she's learned from it. Now, as runners, we have to be dedicated and driven, but today you'll learn the other side of things, what led Suzy to do what she did. This is a really powerful and quite emotional interview, so if it's something that might trigger something in you, make sure you're prepared before listening. And I will apologize in advance. There is some swearing and some very adult conversations, shall we say, so you might want to make sure that there aren't any children around when you are listening to this one. So after a quick word from Body Health, we will be right to the interview. December already. I can barely believe it either, although I actually love this time of year. Everyone's in a good mood and things are really cheery. Our friends at Body Health are feeling especially good, and later in the show I'll tell you how you can be one of 2 winners of a 6-pack of Perfect Amino. You can tune in later to hear more. Suzy, thank you so much for being here today on the Running for Real podcast. I am really excited for this interview. I think it's going to be one of a kind. And, you and I were just talking a few minutes before, saying about how we're both very real, very vulnerable, very honest, which I think is great. And I know my listeners are going to love this. So thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be on your podcast. And like I was saying earlier, I don't do too many of these anymore. So I like to pick and choose. And I just thought yours would be a great one to be on.
Oh, thank you. I am absolutely honored. Okay, so I want to kind of go back to, or start with, I guess, your running career itself. I like to go into that because the listeners are interested in anyone who basically has any kind of running career, but particularly when it's one that is as impressive as yours. So, you've managed to do all these things that most runners listening could never even dream of, but maybe tell us about some of the highlights in your running career that meant a lot to you.
I think the first one was at such a young age. So discovering that talent in elementary school, that was really cool because I think, at that age, life is starting to get kind of complicated for young girls with drama and what do I want to be, what I want to do. And I think in 5th grade, I found something that really made me feel good. It gave me that purpose early on.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And I could see that being a special moment. I think most of us can remember that moment. It kind of clicked, or you realized that running meant a lot to you. So then from there, you kind of, at that point, did you realize you were you doing that well in your area? Or was it just you found something you enjoyed and then you kind of progressed?
I was, at that time, I knew I was really good in the hometown that I grew up, that I was beating all the boys and girls. It wasn't really till college that I figured out that I had a really good talent, that I could become an Olympian. So when I made my first Olympic team, of all the three, that was the most thrilling. Is the first one, because after the first one, then came the pressure.
Yes.
And the pressure was so enormous for me. You know, it's different for everybody, but for me, because of my illness and not knowing at the time that I had bipolar, I had ADHD, I had anxiety, OCD. Let's just go down the list here. But so if I would have known earlier about all these things in my brain, it would have helped me to enjoy my second Olympics, my third Olympics. It would have helped me to enjoy my running career.
Yeah, absolutely.
But on the opposite end, it hurt my running career. The brain not being healthy.
Yeah. And so when you said, you didn't realize in college, we're going to go into that side of things in a minute, but just before we go deeper, you said about you kind of realized it in college that, you could be an Olympian. Was it right there and then you kind of set your sights on it and like, I'm going to do this? Because, most collegiates, they're kind of a bit obsessed with their own world at that point. I'm going to try and win NCAAs. I'm going to try and do something, whatever level you were at. But you were thinking beyond that, even at that point?
Yeah. In college, I was thinking, okay, I'm winning every race. Who is it who's going to beat me to prevent me from making that Olympic team? I soon find out later down the road that athletes just show up at the Olympic trials that haven't been around forever, that are doing drugs. So they aren't getting tested. So they can just show up with the roids and kick your ass. Whereas so I didn't even realize that whole other side of the sport of running, which unfortunately the sport wants to cover up because they don't want the lawsuits. They don't want the negative press on the running world, because the running world doesn't get what it deserves in the press. Thank God for Shalane and the New York Marathon, because that really has brought a lot of attention to the sport again.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And I think knowing that I wanted to be an Olympian someday and hopefully win a medal, that started this persona, which you and I have talked about, of the athlete, the runner who has to be perfect. So many runners that I trained with were straight A students. They never got a B, and a B would be a failure. So many athletes would hide the issues they had, and they would build up, and they would never talk about these. And many of the young runners that I trained with in college had eating disorders and were anorexic or bulimic and never shared it. They didn't want to talk about it. And behind their back, everybody is whispering, oh my God, look at so-and-so. She's so skinny. She's not going to be able to make it. So everybody's whispering and gossiping. And it's like, why don't we come out and actually say something? Coaches, especially, who won't talk about it. In my case, the coach didn't want to talk about it. It was easier just to ignore instead of get into that whole psychological problem. But when it comes to the eating disorders in running, they're afraid to speak up because they're this perfect persona. And that's the one thing that still bothers me in this sport is, Instagram, everything. Everybody looks so perfect on the outside with all their running pictures. And I don't quite understand why they're sharing their performances online and what they ran in that workout. To me, I'm still baffled. Like, why do you want to tell your competition so much information on yourself? But I think if we can get past this perfect persona, we can actually help people more. And so by me sharing my story, talking about the negatives, my eating disorder in college, because I felt enormous pressure to win. And I also had this delusion, if I was skinnier, I could run faster, which is true to a point, but you only have that benefit for maybe a year. Some runners can stretch it out to 2 years, but by that time, you're pretty much done with your running. If you want to come back, it is going to be an extreme struggle, and you've already done the damage to your body. So the injuries are piling up. It just seems that people need to recognize this, or the ones around you, so you can get the medical treatment. Because as we know, eating disorders aren't about food. It's about lack of control. It's, in my case, I lost all control I felt in my brain. And so the one thing I could control was my eating. And if I didn't eat because I was injured and not training, that gave me a calm to the anxiety that was swirling in my head. Yep. But that only lasted so long. Because you would get hungry, maybe you would eat something, and then that would swirl around in your head, that anxiety. I'm going to get fat. I'm sitting here. I'm not running. You just ate an apple. Really? But when you're ill in the brain, you can't think logically. And so that's where people have to understand that eating disorders are a mental illness. Yeah. And it's denial, denial, denial. I know that for a fact. One of the first stages, denial, blame somebody else. Yeah.
No, I'm glad you mentioned that, because I have been actually focusing a lot on that. And I had no idea Suzy was going to mention that just there for anyone listening, but I'm so glad that she did. Suzy, I've had quite a few episodes lately on, I had an interview with Nancy Clark, who I worked with to get my running periods back. And I realized I was under fueling. I didn't have an eating disorder as such, but I definitely was under fueling. And then I talked with Renee McGregor a few months ago about orthorexia, and it's been kind of eye-opening, and it's something I'm trying to bring more awareness to. And I know there are a lot of others in the running community that are doing it, but I'm glad you said what you did right there, because I think you, having been through it, can really speak to people, whereas I maybe can't, because I didn't actually have the kind of the struggles mentally with it that I maybe could have if I had maybe taken that next step. So, and I think it's good for people to hear, sorry, just one more thing, that sure. You, even at that level, you were winning everything, and you still felt like you need to do it. Like, I think people listening may think, or even me might think, well, she wouldn't even need to bother, because surely she'd think, well, I could eat pies for breakfast every day, for lunch, breakfast and dinner, and I'd still win. So what does it matter to me? But hearing you say that, even at the top, you were still thinking that way.
Yeah. And in college, even high school, when I did get my period, I was the opposite of most runners. I felt, first of all, I felt bigger than a lot of the runners, because so many of them were anorexic. But then for me, with my period, every time I had a race, I would get my period. And I had no idea that the anxiety that I was putting myself through for each race was bringing on my period. So early on, my freshman year, I went on the pill to get my period. I've been on the pill now for 30 years, which in many health reasons isn't the best thing, but I found that I need the hormone for my brain, because if I'm not on that hormone will set me off in a very downer type mode. So I'm 49, and I will be starting probably hormonal replacement therapy this week. I see my doctor, because so many of my levels, my estrogen, my testosterone, are so low, almost non-existent. So for me, I'm realizing this could be another huge benefit to my moods and the way I feel, because I'm still so obsessive with my yoga exercise, because that is really helping my brain to stay level. But I know I can't rely on that. Yeah. What's going to happen, when who knows, if I'm 55 and I can't work out, I have to find an alternative and make my brain even healthier. So that's a great thing about once you get to a point and you realize, as runners, they realize they have this innate sense about how their body feels. But I don't think they always have this sense about how their brain feels. And we have to so we have to become more aware of that. And because of everything I've gone through, I've become so well aware of my brain versus my body, which is crucial. Yeah.
And I'm hoping that people are going to learn a bit from this today. And I want to talk about what you've been through, as you have been through a lot, and you've shared it as well, which is very brave, and, really admire you for doing so. But just before we go any any more into it. While you were in that, college, post-collegiate time, was there ever a time where you did feel everything was amazing and things just couldn't get any better? Or was it kind of bubbling through the whole time you were there, kind of with the bipolar, especially kind of being ups and downs?
There were definitely the ups. When I won my championship races, I was sky high. I didn't realize that was part of my mania, that I felt so elated and so excited, but that would go away fairly quickly because I was supposed to win the next race. So it was always the pressure to win. As good as I was, there was still the next race. I can't lose. That was never an option. Also in college, it was really difficult because of the eating disorder. I also had huge body image issues. And that started early on because my boobs developed faster than the rest of my body. So here I am, this runner who has big boobs. You do not see this often. I had a woman, just some fan who wrote into my coach telling me I should wear 2 bras so my boobs wouldn't bounce when I'm racing. And I look back at that time and I just sat there and I took what my coach said and I obeyed. I was the perfect athlete. Okay, coach, I will wear 2 bras so my boobs don't bounce. And now I think, can I swear? I would say, what the fuck are you people trying to tell me how I should be and how I should look? But when you're at that age and you're hearing these adults tell you, it's powerful.
Oh, yeah.
And then I had a coach on the men's team in college. This was a paid coach at the University of Wisconsin who was filming my breasts when I would be running. And the reason I found out this is because one of the shot putters on the men's team, he felt this was really wrong because he was filming my boobs and then showing the other guy athletes. So I found out he was fired. Never, ever from him or the university, any apology. Like, we're so sorry. It made me feel like I was at fault. Like I did something wrong for having these, for having these
often,
boobs. Yeah. So here it comes crashing down on my self-esteem. Just another blow. You're too big. You have big boobs. You're not smart enough. I didn't get good grades because of the ADHD, which we didn't even know I had until age 42. So there was a lot going on. People just see that person who's on the track winning. They have no idea what's going through my brain. And let me tell you, as you know, everybody listening to this podcast, everybody in life has their issues. There's just some of us that are really, really good actors or actresses at covering it up. And that's fine. That it can also be nobody's business. I get that. Mine just happened to be public. But with those issues, the more you carry them and keep them inside, they will continue to build, and they are going to crash, whether you're married, have kids down the road, something's going to bring on, the stresses will bring on something that will trigger all that buildup. So it's really, really good to start talking about these things. Sports psychologists, a therapist. I prefer psychologists over therapists because they have more education. So that's just my 2 cents on trying to help young runners so they don't suffer later in life.
No, I think that's so important. And thank you so much for sharing that and really allowing us to see and understand, what that was like, especially as, like you said, we all have our issues. We all have these struggles. But the more you kind of ignore them, the more they do bubble up at a time you least expect it. And what would you have done differently then now if you could go back to maybe those, late teens, early 20s? Would you have just spoken to someone? Like, were you talking to someone at the time? And if so, would you have done that?
Well, I wish I would have had the mentality, the stronger mentality. And that's what my husband and I are trying to give my daughter, that strength to be able to say something. So for me, it was men in my life that had this power over me, and I felt they could control me. I always told people, I am the most coachable athlete, meaning I will obey, I will do anything you say. So it was more of an issue with men that I believe also came out towards the end of what we're talking about today, is the Vegas part where I had control over the men. Mm-hmm. So I see where that tied into what happened in Vegas. And so what I would have done different is had the courage to stand up for myself and say, this is wrong. Coach, I don't feel like I should be doing that today. I'm tired. My Achilles is hurting. This isn't right. So have that strength to just stand up for yourself. What are you going to lose? What do you have to lose? It's just a race. Is that what's dictating your life? Mm-hmm. And that's where we need balance. We need so much more in our life besides just running. I didn't have that.
So true. And I think many of us have done that. I've definitely been through stages where running has become everything. And I mean, with me and with almost always the case is that's when it all comes crashing down, is when you don't have anything else. Like you get an injury, you get overtrained, something happens to stop it. So you're so right that we do need more than that. And do you see right now with things changing, do you feel like things are actually better? Like you mentioned about social media, but then there's also, so that's a bad thing, but then there's also the side of things where we've got more of the kind of speaking out about abuse and things like that, women taking a stand. Do you feel like things are actually in a better place now, or worse, or just the same?
You see on social media where everything's perfect. So in many ways, I don't think it's gotten better. But I think there's more help out there. Mm-hmm. Maybe I know for me, people are direct messaging me issues that they have. So I'm seeing it more in a silent way.
Yes.
And so that's where I'm trying to get it as an open conversation. So yes and no. Mm-hmm. The visual, no. But under, down low where nobody can see, they're reaching out and they're wanting help. And I also think with running, when running gets to a point where it's everything, and I see other runners, professional runners, commenting about how running is everything to them. They feel like this is such a great, incredible gift. I have this running for the rest of my life, which absolutely is a gift. But if running is controlling your life, where you have to run good if you don't run every day, you're actually missing family functions, or you're missing out on your kid's soccer game because you need to go for that 10-miler. These are some issues people need to address. It's like being an alcoholic. If you need that drink in order to function at work, and you're going in the bathroom to have that drink, or you're taking cocaine because it's the only way you can get through the day, this is affecting your life. Running is the same addiction as a cocaine, as alcohol. It can be a negative addiction if it's causing harm to your life and that it's taking you away from your life.
Mm-hmm. That's so important to bring up. Yeah. I'm glad you mentioned that, because I think, obviously there's a fine line between I'm being committed, I'm doing everything I can to race the best that I can. But I think even being committed, like you said, if you start giving up on social functions, I can't go out to dinner because I can't have, I can't go to a steak restaurant because I need to eat my steak from home with no sauce on it. Or, like you said, missing kids events, family events, that's a huge telltale sign. And actually, Suzy, when I stopped running for 3 months, I kind of just did it. And I think that was because I chose to do it. It wasn't forced out an injury or overtraining. But some people said to me, I don't understand how she can just give up running and how she can just step away from the sport. And I was like, well, it's because I know I have more to offer this world than just being a runner. And I saw that as a good thing, that I didn't need to have that run in there every day to, function. So I think you're right that we do need that balance. We do need to actually have other things in our life. And, your story is a great example of when running is removed from the equation, or not even removed, but kind of become a less focal point. That's when things start to go wrong. Right. So then maybe tell us about that. What happened, for those who do not know, after your running career kind of had its peak and things were starting to calm down after that?
Yeah, well, for me, the 2000 Olympics, some people know this, some people don't. I actually fell on purpose in the final because the pressure was so enormous and I had an incredible anxiety panic attack in that race. It happened before in other races, but not to this extent. And because of that experience, that's when I really started to have the love-hate relationship with running, because I had invested my whole life into this one race that didn't go. And I knew I didn't want to go back for the 2004 Olympics, but I trained because everybody around me wanted me to. And I was the perfect, almost like child, even though I'm an adult. I was like a child. Whatever you tell me, I will do. In my mind, I'm thinking, I just want to be done. I want more to my life. I want a child. And so after I didn't make the final in the 2004 trials because of an injury, I was blessed to be able to have a child. Even though my Nike contract didn't state this, but it stated that I had to be ranked number 1 in the US to get my contract. So basically they're telling you can't have a baby because you won't be ranked number 1, which people can't believe that they could do. To this day, I can't believe that they would want to do that and take that away from a young training athlete.
Yeah.
Who should experience the greatest gift in God, whether it's adopting a baby or having a child. To me, that was the best thing I'd ever done in my life. But don't get me wrong, children aren't for everybody. So it's not like you have to do this to get this great gift. There's so many other gifts out there.
Absolutely. And that, you're right. Like it could be that you've always wanted to travel and you wanted to go see the world or go to some place new, volunteer somewhere, something like that. It doesn't have to necessarily be children, but like you said, more to life than kind of, what I said when I stopped running was I was kind of, after 14 years, I was fed up of train, race, rest all the time. So yeah, I'm glad you mentioned that. And so let's talk about Vegas here. So after you kind of running, started to fall away and, you were kind of forced with this decision of where do I go? You had your daughter. Is that you?
I had Kylie.
Yep. And so what happened after that? Maybe tell the listeners if they don't know.
Really quickly. I mean, this happened right after childbirth. Something changed in me. I was very low, very depressed. I would remember sitting in one place and just rocking back and forth, kind of like this calming, trying to tell myself, it's okay. And just trying not to almost explode. And the rocking gave me some type of calm feeling, but I couldn't function. Everything in the world was overwhelming. The dogs barking, I just couldn't handle it. And felt like, what is happening to me? I was this elite athlete and I can't even handle life, a simple life. So I went to the doctor, within 10 minutes prescribed an antidepressant. And this is happening daily to so many people. The doctors within 10, 15 minutes will give you an antidepressant. People need to speak up and say, oh, I feel I do have mental health issues in my family. There's bipolar, there's schizophrenia, all these. We need to speak up because the doctors aren't asking that.
Did you mention that at the time or?
I did not know. I had no idea about mental illness and antidepressants and how in a lot of people, they can set you off in different states, a lower depression, suicidal, or a manic state in my case. So the doctor gave me Zoloft, great drug for many people, but with bipolar, it can set you off in a manic state. Again, not everybody, but a large proportion this has happened to, and I get letters every day about this from people telling me it happened to me. I lived your life, maybe not to the extent of Vegas, but picking up men daily in a bar every single night. I don't know why I'm sleeping with these men. I don't know what I'm doing. So that is what changed everything. And I started doing public appearances again, talking about my depression and how I was all better, even though I was crashing. I was putting on that perfect persona in the public. And my brother had died by suicide. That would have been 6 years before this. And he had bipolar. he went off his medications. And so I was speaking about him and trying to educate people how important it is to stay on your medications, but not knowing that I had the same illness as my brother.
So can I just ask you, with those going to presentations and stuff, was that kind of you were like looking for something to feel valued and that's why you wanted to do the kind of talking? Or was it just something that, people offered it and you thought, oh, why not?
That's a great point. Is I think I was looking for this value because I didn't offer it in my getting an Olympic medal. And I think there's a little narcissistic point to that where you're used to the attention and the fame. So if I go this route, I'll still get the attention, but at the same time, I can help people. And this is making me feel good. So I was starting to get really to a point where, how do I explain it? I was on fire. I had no inhibitions whatsoever. None. Things would pop out of my mouth. I would say things. I would do things that people behind the scenes I know were whispering like, did you see what she just did? Did you hear what she just said? Like sexual things would just pop out of my mouth. And this progressed once I got to Vegas, but I jumped out of an airplane. I could never in my life have jumped out of an airplane, but this drug just made me on fire. My brain literally was on fire and I just had to go. And that wouldn't put it out.
What were you thinking at the time? Were you just kind of like, oh, everything's just great for me? Or were you aware that like, maybe something isn't quite right here? Or were you just kind of ignoring that thinking, well, I'm going to, I just feel so good?
I didn't know. I did not have the thinking that something isn't right here. I had the thinking is this drug, it's making me feel so much better. I'm awesome now. I feel great inside. This depression is gone. My husband noticed the change in me and he's like, yeah, you're a lot louder and you're talking a mile a minute, but you do seem really happy.
Yeah.
I never triggered anything in him. Thought, that's my wife. She's always been a little silly, a little crazy, meaning in a good way, like the life of the party. Yep. But now I was literally the life of the party and not a good way. It wasn't a good way. It was an ugly way, but I didn't see that.
Okay.
Did not see it.
Okay. So then you continued doing these, talks going around the US, kind of doing things to kind of bring awareness to your brother's suicide, things that happened, kind of inspiring people. And then what happened after that?
Well, I just started getting a gig with Rock and Roll Marathon. So I was there to kind of inspire and motivate athletes, and I'd do talks and get the athletes fired up before their races. And then got another gig with Disney to start doing the same thing. And it was amazing how both companies loved me. Like they loved my energy and they thought, oh my God, this is awesome. It's ironic. One of those particular companies that I did work with, looking back on that after my whole Vegas thing came out, was trying to pick me up and sleep with me. And one of the head people. And I remember now looking back as no wonder this guy was trying to pick me up. Because I was so flirtatious. Yeah, I was giving off this vibe to men, like, yes, let's go back to my hotel room. It was just so normal. And I never thought once about that this might be odd. Which is so bizarre. But when you're manic, you don't think. You just do. I try to explain that to people. Mania is a state of an euphoric high without doing the drugs. But if you do drink, which I started drinking a lot, if you drink and you're bipolar, that brings on mania. Sex, drugs, alcohol all bring on mania in someone who's bipolar. And that's why you look for these routes. That's why you see people and you wonder, she's sleeping with everybody in town. What's the deal? That could be a sign of mania, or if she's drinking a ton, maybe it isn't a mental illness, but I feel like addictions are an issue with a mental health. There's something going on that's driving you to this addiction.
Just a random question that I'm thinking about while you're talking about that. So were you running at all during this time?
I was running quite a bit.
Like, could that have taken that addiction away from like some of the other areas, or was it just, I'm just curious if like because you mentioned earlier about how like running can essentially be an addiction, but then you mentioned those things, sex, alcohol, drugs. Like, could the running, had it been going well, have like taken the attention away, or was it, in that manic state with the antidepressant, it was far beyond anything running could do?
Yeah, nothing could stop this unless I got off that medication.
Okay.
But that wasn't possible because nobody knew.
Yeah.
And the running just enhanced it. I mean, when I was in Vegas, I would go on a treadmill for like an hour and a half and just run. And I never got tired. And that's when I started doing half marathons just for fun. I think my fastest was like 1:36. So I wasn't out there sprinting trying to win. I was just out there enhancing my high, which is a pretty incredible feeling. You never forget mania, but you look back on mania and you see the decision and you see how awful it is when you're in that place. But it's hard to get out. Why do you want to leave such an excitement in your body? Mm-hmm. But it's just like I was saying with the addiction, like running and alcohol, when it's hindering your life and taking you away from your life as being a mother, as being a wife, this is a huge problem, but I couldn't see it. And my husband couldn't get me to stop. Mm-hmm. He tried, but then it became him to protect me and protect my image. And if people don't know why I keep saying Vegas, I was an escort in Vegas. I became a full-fledged escort for a year. It wasn't just overnight. It was a 6-month progression of having an open marriage and being able to explore the sexual side that I believe was in me, but not to this degree. I've always loved sex with my husband. He was my only partner. We explored. It wasn't that we had a dull sex life. None of that. It's just I got in a situation where this sexual experience that I had elevated my mania, and I wanted more and more. So the more riskier my sexual behaviors became, the easier it was to feel that high.
Mm-hmm. No, that makes sense.
Getting.
And go on, you can continue.
Before I forget, because my brain will forget this, and it's kind of off, but my after Vegas and everything came out, I was hired for a particular appearance, and maybe down the road I will mention this, but at this point I don't want to do anything now. But I was hired for this appearance because the head wanted to have sex with me. I was sexually harassed on that occasion, and at the time it happened, I never spoke up about this because I felt, if I say something, people are going to say, she's a whore and a slut. She wanted it anyways. And this is when I was getting healthy. And I actually thought this appearance, this particular person hired me to actually try and make a difference in the mental health community and help other athletes. And when I found out that when this all happened to me and I was given the hotel room number, and I was forced to dinner, there were so many things leading up to this that I realized now, what is this man doing to other women? Mm-hmm. And so it's really, right now, this all just kind of came up in the last month through therapy and through some interaction on Facebook with this particular person.
Wow.
Yeah. And I did confront the person and told him, you did sexually harass me. And from there, the person immediately stopped following me.
Well, Well done you for being brave enough to say something at that point. And I think you mentioned there that, no one believed you, but you didn't really want to say anything for that reason, that you thought no one would believe you. Because I think that can be the case with so many things that, you kind of get branded. And then, it becomes so hard to say anything. And then that encourages that whole thing of, like we talked about earlier, like pushing it back down. I'm not saying anything because, it's just going to make things worse. So I'll just keep it to myself. And thank you for sharing and being brave and really doing that, because it's not easy to do. And as you just shared about what happened in Vegas, anyone listening, you can go and look online and find out the interviews that Suzy has done for, the details if you want to learn more about that story. But I wanted this episode to be just about what we can do for anyone listening who maybe not necessarily has reached a point like that yet, but they, have been going through a traumatic experience like your brother's suicide, or they have had something really feel like something isn't quite right. So what would you suggest?
Or a failure.
Yeah,
a
exactly.
failure in a race. For me, my failure at the Olympics, that feeling can be the same feeling for a high school young athlete who didn't win the state title. It's the same feeling.
Yep.
So people need to be aware of this. For certain, they need to be aware of this. And I think one thing that I think is crucial, a lot of people will write to me saying they have a loved one who they believe is bipolar and is acting irrational. And they've even brought it up to the individual, and they're trying to cover it up by running every day or doing whatever they can, or drinking. And the loved ones are always in so much pain. I can't help this person. What can I do? And first of all, I tell them, well, that person who's struggling with the mental illness needs to recognize it first. And if they can't, eventually they're going to hit rock bottom. They may destroy everything in their life, their marriage, relationships, money. Bipolar, one of the drastic, risky behaviors is spending too much money on just whatever. There's no rhyme or reason why you spend money on something. So the best advice I can give to somebody who knows somebody who is struggling, who's very close to you, like a loved one, you go and get help. But people won't think this way. They think, why should I get help when it's my father or my brother on suffering, he's the one who needs help. But in reality, if you get help, you'll know how to help them, how to approach them, maybe help them to see that they could get help. But most people won't do it. They just won't get themselves help, especially a spouse.
No, I think that's so good you mentioned that, because that was actually one of the things I was going to ask you about, was that specific thing. But also, surely if you go to get help and you say, hey, I've been going to see a therapist because I really wanted to kind of deal with, this thing I've been struggling with, and it's really helping me and I'm feeling so much better, there's more of a chance that they will then kind of take the initiative themselves and say, actually, if they're good, then maybe I'll go see them. Whereas, like you said, if the spouse or the person who is cares for the loved one won't go themselves, then why should the other person go? Because maybe you have some kind of issue going on that they've noticed, and you're kind of in denial yourself. So I'm glad you mentioned that, because I think that is so important. And we are in this world that is so afraid of speaking to therapists, speaking to psychologists, speaking to anyone who deals with these emotional, mental, whatever kind of issues that we have going on. But, I've been to see sports psychologists many times over the years, and therapists for various things. And, you can't even begin. And I know you can attest to this, to say how much it actually helps. And it really is the only way you can get to the source of the problem without, something drastic happening, like you said, hitting rock bottom.
And stronger people like yourself and like me, the stronger people are the one that want to go and get help, because everybody has issues of some sort in their life. Most of our issues come from our childhood. And the more you reach out and the more you go and talk with somebody and release those issues, the better your life's going to be. So, everybody should see a psychologist. I didn't even know what the difference was before I started treatment between a psychologist and a psychiatrist. I had no clue. I didn't know that a psychiatrist is the one who prescribes the medication, and the psychologist is the one who talks you through kind of issues and helps you to resolve them. A bad psychologist, in my opinion, and I had to fire 2 of them, was these psychologists telling me what to do. And if they realized my whole entire life, I was told what to do, this is the wrong approach. And I found a psychologist in Madison, Wisconsin, just an amazing woman, who she said for the first time, you know what? I am not here to tell you what to do. You're going to make those decisions and you're going to tell me those decisions. I may not like all your decisions and I may try and help you, guide you towards other things, but ultimately you're the one who's going to choose. And that was helpful. It took a while because I still felt like, oh, I can still do drugs and alcohol and that's going to be okay. She never gave me permission to do drugs, but in my mind, I felt like I could do it. But then I came to a place in my own realization that I said, okay, whenever I'm still doing the drugs and alcohol, I'm still doing some of these bad, risky behaviors and I'm feeling guilt. And I started to actually feel remorse and guilt over it. And that's when I really started to change and I broke free of it. And now the thought of drinking alcohol is, I would rather have a cherry Coke of Roy Rogers. I'm like a kid in that. I cannot drink. It's not, it will still set me off in a manic state. Even though I'm taking medication, I can't do that. It would not be good.
You're not taking the Zoloft anymore though, right?
Oh God, no.
Yeah. So you found a different one that works well for like keeping you kind of being yourself rather than being in that manic state?
After I started my treatment, they kept me on the Zoloft because you can't take somebody off of it immediately because I was suicidal at that time and they just were trying everything to keep me from hurting myself or taking my life. And once I was completely off, I also was taking the Lamictal when they had me on the Zoloft. So that was starting, but that took about a good 6 months before I was off the Zoloft and I was on the Lamictal and start feeling somewhat level. I was still angry and it took a while to let go of the anger and stop blaming everybody else when this was my own issue. And I'm glad that I've gone through this whole experience. Without a doubt, I hate the fact that I hurt so many people. Never my intention. Like I said, mania is something you just do. You aren't there contemplating, oh, I wonder what my husband's thinking right now. Or I wonder you aren't thinking about any of those things. Or this happens in relationships also with affairs. People want, if the husband had an affair or the wife, it's so easy for that spouse to slam the door and say, get out of my life. I never want anything to do with you. When really, was it a mental illness that's driving this sexual behavior? Or is it just an unhappy marriage and you're not willing to talk about it? And my husband and I, our relationship changed because of this. It first went downhill, but he never once said, I'm leaving you and I'm walking out the door. His focus was getting me healthy first, and then we would deal with our issues because I had too much to deal with as it is to put on all those issues with him. And once we cleared it up and started getting treatment for both of us, we were able to open up with our issues with each other. And that's brought us closer because we have such an open relationship. Even with my daughter, we talk about everything from sex addictions to hypersexuality, with which most people don't understand what hypersexuality even is. And that's what I was suffering with my mania is hypersexuality. I could not get the thought of sex out of my head 24/7.
Well, thank you for sharing that. And again, being honest with us about, all those things that most of us have some kind of aspect of something that we're dealing with. But I think that what you just mentioned there is just really important to say. And especially as you said, you're still with your husband, you're bringing your daughter up to kind of be honest and open. So maybe tell us just a bit about where you're at with her. Like, what are you learning that you want to show her and have her believe as she grows up, in this world that we live in?
Well, my parents, my husband's parents, they keep stressing to us how proud they are of the way we've been able to raise Kylie through all of this, when a lot of negative trolls said my daughter is going to turn out to be just like what I did in Vegas, and this is going to harm her life forever. And this experience actually has made us so much closer because we can talk about anything. I mean, anything. She knows my story. She hasn't read my book because it's just not appropriate at this time, but she knows my story. And again, she'll come and tell me what the boy in class said to the girl that would shock parents. And I never, ever once tell her, do not repeat that. Do not say that. I can't believe you even told me that. That's the worst thing a parent can do, in my opinion. If a child's coming to you and expressing something, they want to know, was that appropriate? Why did he do that? And, I tell my daughter what that boy said was completely inappropriate. And, I can't believe, hopefully somebody is recognizing what is happening and what this boy is saying, or most likely it's what's happening in his life, his family life. But I think open communication, and parents need to know, fourth graders are learning a lot more than they know, and to have that discussion. I think Kylie was in fourth grade when we had the conversation about condoms, because she had heard something about safe sex and wanted to know that. And so we went on the line and I pulled up condoms and we talked about it. And it was, she understood. And she obviously was like, gross, Mom, that's gross. Sex is, I don't, but at the same time, I'm educating her. And that's a great gift I'm giving my daughter.
Definitely. And I look forward to kind of hearing in the future of how she's growing up, and just, really, like we've said, the more open and honest and vulnerable you can be, the stronger a person that takes, and the more it's going to kind of pay off in the long run. So I'm sure she's going to be, a really well-rounded and just such a genuine person. So look forward to hearing more about that. And you mentioned your book, Fast Girl. Tell the listeners just a bit about that if they haven't heard about it. I will put links in the show notes, but just kind of a summary of what that's about.
I think, I was so scared to put that book out. I talked so much about intimate details, about masturbation, about the hypersexuality, about thinking about sex all the time, about the pressures with my running. I knew I was putting a lot out there, and that scared me because I was still worried about what the running community would think of me. And after I came out, and I got a lot of support from the running community, but I also got a lot of backlash from the running community who still wanted to label me as the whore, as the slut. And I realized through therapy that those were the people that had their own issues with sex and their own issues in their life. And it was easier to throw that negativity on me versus throwing it on themselves. And maybe they're just not capable. And I've learned not being capable, I accept that. If somebody doesn't get my story and label me as the whore, I understand it because they're not capable of ever learning about this illness. And that's okay. I'm not going to put judgment on you, but I do think it's awful that you have to write this and tell me this. But I will never judge anybody in my life because I don't want to be judged. And people that judge me today don't have the gift of being a part of my life. And that's empowering to be able to get rid of these people that don't support me. And I'm not going to put on that face that I used to put on of being perfect, because I'm anything but. And I know everybody is, but I'm going to live to those standards because that's impossible. And that eventually will catch up to you.
That is so true. And I love what you just said right there about, I'm always saying that to people, like, if someone judges you or, who, like even in a race situation, getting ready to run a race, if it doesn't go well, what does it matter? Well, what if people, see my result online and they say, blah, 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 that I've slowed down? And I said, well, if they're going to criticize you, then it's not really someone you want in your life anyway, is it? So it's exactly what you just said right there. Those people, if you are you don't want those people around you. So, I know it's easy to say, but
it is.
Not listen to them as much as you can because they don't matter. Okay, Suzy, just going to take a few moments to thank our sponsors, but just before I do, this is a question I always give my listeners. If you were to give like an Oscar speech or some kind of award speech, who would be some people you would thank?
I would thank my daughter for saving my life. Without a doubt, she saved my life. During a suicide attempt, I paused to actually think about her. And I thought, how could I leave my daughter? I couldn't. So I would thank Kylie, and I would thank Mark for always being there for me when he could have so much easier made his life easy by walking out that door and moving on. He took the hard road, and that should be applauded. And I commend him for also saving my life. And he could have taken my daughter away, and he could have said that I could never have custody of her because of what had happened. But not once did that enter his mind. So those two are the heroes. And then all the support from the people that knew me or didn't know me, that meant so much. And that was a wonderful positive about social media.
Is that
there was a lot of things.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I'm glad to hear that you did have that. And those people, hopefully some of them are listening and realizing that Suzy is talking to you right there. Okay, we're just going to take a moment to thank our sponsors, and then we will be back with the Running for Real 4. At this time of year, we are thankful for what we have, and I am especially thankful for this community. The Running for Real community is absolutely lovely, and as a podcast listener, you are one of my favorites, as this is a part of my business I put more effort into than anything else. This is also the time of giving, and our friends at Body Health are just as thankful for you guys as I am, but they're stepping it up a notch. Body Health is giving away a pack of 6 Perfect Amino tablets and a pack of 6 Perfect Amino XP tubs to 2 lucky listeners in the month of December. To enter, all you need to do is visit tinamuir.com/Christmas giveaway and enter your email address. I'll announce the winners in January and get the products right to you. You can also use coupon code TINA10 for 10% off at bodyhealth.com if you don't want to wait. Now, for those of you who are first-time listeners, Body Health was one of my secrets to success as a 2:36 marathoner, as it helped me recover so much faster in heavy training. And as for injuries, it sped up healing for those a lot faster too. Enter to win at tinamuir.com/Christmas giveaway before December 31st. All right, Suzy, just 4 more quick questions for you, starting with a unique nutrition tip or maybe something you used to eat before your races that people might be interested to hear.
This really worked well for me. When I was in Europe, I would travel with a hot plate, and I would bring, it's called cream of rice. It's in an orange box, a little orange box. It's actually usually in the baby food section.
Oh.
And so it's not like cream of wheat. It's a rice cereal. So I'd boil water and put this in, and it expands. And then I would put 2 scoops of vanilla protein in it. And I would eat this 4 hours before my race, because I didn't always like the food in Europe. Maybe it was just too rich. I loved it after the race, but before the race, it was just too much. I normally wouldn't eat like that. So that was a very good secret.
Yeah.
And then now one of my little secrets I love, I eat way too many sweets, and I'm going to see the doctor because I think I have a thyroid problem.
Oh dear.
Just reading up on it, you crave sweets all the time. So, what I try to eat is rice cakes dipped in milk chocolate, and you can get them at Whole Foods. Amazing. And then I put them in the freezer or the fridge so they're cold. Yeah.
Okay, that's cool. Thank you for sharing.
Little, yeah.
That does sound like a good little snack. All right. What about a running for real moment, a moment that only runners will understand?
A running for real moment. Okay. I would say we all understand the glory and the high, but this is a tough one because I have crazy things that happened with my running. I think what you need to do is approach running in a way that it's a gift to enjoy it. And you're going to have those races where you're really struggling. And when you know you're struggling, maybe with a lap to go, it's okay to pause, take a deep breath. And if you have to slow down for a couple steps, it's okay.
Yeah.
Let shrug that off your shoulders. Let that anxiety go best you can. And what's the worst thing that's going to happen? Maybe you'll come in last. Maybe you'll come in second to last. Who cares? And if people want to look at you and say, what happened to you? either flip them off, just kidding, or I would say, just say, I had a bad day. End of story.
Yeah.
I like that line, end of story. You don't have to tell everybody everything, even how you were feeling. Just say, didn't go well. End of story.
And I think most people, actually, unless they are at the elite level, no one's really going to say to you what happened to you.
Right.
People are going to they might be thinking it, but they're never going to say it. So, you shouldn't have to deal with a situation like that. I get that you would, being an elite, or maybe I would have if I, had a bad day. But for most people, hopefully you can just dodge that whole conversation altogether.
Right.
But so true, you don't have to tell them.
And tell your brain it's okay. Most of all, it's really you who's thinking this. I mean, really, do these people really care? They care for that second. And I don't know if care is the word. They're like, whoa, she had a bad race. But then they're going to focus on the next race.
Yeah.
And if you have a bad race, really, nobody really cares. It's not as big of a deal as you think it is.
So true.
Go out. And if you disqualify yourself for a race, go to Dairy Queen. That's DQ. Get it? Go Sunday. Do something good for yourself instead of be miserable. Or a coach once told me, if you have a bad race, give yourself 10 minutes to pout and then snap out of it. Like, really.
So true. Thank you. All right. What about a high moment for you in your running career?
A high moment? Is that what you said? There's many high moments. I ran part of the Grand Canyon. And I did it solo. I jogged it down, and then I ran it. And towards the end, I started running it. And that was an incredible high to be able to use my running talent after my competitive sports to give me one of the biggest highs I've ever had, because I conquered this canyon solo. Cool. I did it solo. And that was during my recovery. And that became a life-changing experience for me, where I decided I'm going to hike, run mountains now. I'm going to really try to search the world for different experiences, because life is so more than running a race. It's great running races, but what life is about is experiences. It's about memories. It's about family. It's about being with loved ones. And not always family can be the healthiest for you, but being around the ones who love you the most and not missing out on the little things in life.
Oh, that's wonderful. Thank you so much for sharing. And finally, what do you tell yourself, or what did you tell yourself when you'll be standing on the start line?
Towards the middle of my career, somebody said, I remember the particular person, she was a hammer thrower, and she was retired. And she told me, you know what, milk your career as long as you can. And I remember thinking towards the end, I don't want to milk this career anymore. But I remember her telling me, just try and keep it going as long as you can for sponsorship and all this. That didn't happen because I wanted out. But she told me, when you're on the starting line, look over at your competitors, and they're probably pretty stressed. You look at them, smile. Some of them might see you smile and be like, why is she smiling at me? And maybe look at the crowd and appreciate where you are at that moment.
Love that.
And instead of being, oh my God, I can do this. I can do it. I'm going to win this race. I can positive talk. Maybe stop focusing so much on the race and focus on the gift that you've been given to be there. And then maybe that will help with anxiety and stress. And I wish I could have done that more. And,
honestly,
and make friends. Make friends with your competitors.
Yeah, no, so true. Honestly, Suzy, that might be my favorite answer we've had so far to that question.
Really?
Yeah.
Awesome.
That's really cool. I love that. Okay, and finally, I do ask my guests if they will send me a photo of them in a power pose, something that you would do maybe on the start of a race, something to build your confidence, maybe before you did a presentation or a talk or something. Will you send us a photo of you in a power pose?
Okay, I'd probably be doing a selfie before the race starts or during the race. I do like to take pictures when I've even been known to talk on the phone during a half marathon.
That's fun.
But you want me to send you just a power pose of present or past?
Can be either, whatever you want to do, just so listeners kind of can get a feel for what people's power poses look like and just, how it helps them. It's just kind of a fun thing to end up.
Okay.
So that would be great.
And I think also I have a lot of power poses on my Instagram. It's just Favor Hamilton. But my Instagram now is showing a lot more versatility in my life.
That's good.
Surfing, with hiking mountains, hike Mount Whitney. If anybody gets a chance, it's an incredible experience going to 15,000 feet.
Great.
But I will try and think of something I can send you.
Yeah.
I'm just starting today. I keep saying today is the day I'm going to start training for a half marathon.
Okay.
I haven't run.
Done it.
I haven't run in 5 months. But I've got to a point where I'm like, I really want to get back into having that fun, and being with these runners during these half marathons is exhilarating.
Yeah, it is definitely
so wonderful. So happy.
Well, I'm going to ask my listeners to reach out to you through one of your social channels, which you're about to tell us, to make sure that you have held accountable to that by the time this comes out. So, Suzy, How can people find out more about you if they want to learn more or follow you in the future?
My favorite is Instagram, because it's just, poses, pictures. But again, I have to tell people, if you are going to search me on Instagram, a lot of that is fake. We're putting on makeup. We're making ourselves look the best. We're giving the cheeriest smile we can muster up. Mm-hmm. So you have to understand that isn't my complete true life. But at those moments, I am happy when I'm doing those pictures. But I have to say, it's not perfect like that at all. Mm-hmm. And it's hard. I can't see myself posting a picture of myself at my worst depression, because that's the last thing you want to do is take a picture. It's not even going through your mind. Oh, I should get this picture so I can put it on Instagram.
Let me save this moment forever.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
That wouldn't be that.
Okay. Well, I will encourage people to go find you there, keeping that in mind. I will put links to Fast Girl for anyone if you do want to purchase the book. And Suzy, just a big thank you today for being real, more than any guest we've had, being real, being honest and vulnerable, and being that brave person to share and give people advice on how to, deal with these things themselves. So thank you so much. You are a shining light in this world, that you can do that and help others with what you've been through. So thank you so much. Thank you.
And I'm glad that Fast Girl became a bestseller on the New York Times list, because that book gave me the confidence to know that people recognize this illness and want to make a difference and want help. And I think if it didn't make the best times list, obviously I would have felt good about it, but this just really sealed it to make me feel like, okay, I am making a difference. And the people that don't have a voice, you have a voice. You can tell me your story, but you have a voice. It's in you. So just let it out.
Love that. Thank you so much. What a great way to end that. Well, that was unlike any other episode that we've had on here, but I want to say well done to Suzy for being so brave and sharing with us the things that most never would. And for also admitting her mistakes and struggles, and that way she can help others. You can find links to everything we talked about today in the show notes at tinamuir.com/episode 36. And if you were affected by today's interview, there are some helpful links in the show notes for you to hopefully find some help and resources you need. I want to take a moment to thank you for listening today, whether it's your first time of listening to Running for Real or your 36th time of listening to Running for Real. I really appreciate you taking the time to tune in, and I hope you enjoyed it as much as I did. Next week, we're going to be hearing from a safety product that is making big waves. It's something I no longer go on a run, especially on my own, without. And I'm also going to give you my best recommendations for gift ideas this holiday season. I've given you over 25 ideas, and I'm going to be kind of discussing them and why I think they would make good gifts. And of course, there's all price ranges as well, so don't worry. It's not going to be all big dollar purchases there. Okay, I hope you have a great week, and we'll hear you next week.
Thanks for listening to the Running for Real podcast. Be sure to check out tinamuir.com for show notes and even more helpful running information.